tell me why this was never in any of Meta's presentations? How is me putting a phone
I
camera
want to
in the
know
Quest
too.
Pro headset the most compelling
I don't
demo
get
of
it.
VR I've seen in like the last 5 years? But I have
I am going to buy
some hot
handstand.
takes on this whole Metaverse thing that I kept to myself for a little while.
I'm
but
cool
I think
with
it's
that.
finally time to share them, so buckle up. Let's get into it. So Meta's stock is down over 60% this year. Facebook's growth has flatlined, and their CEO, Mark Zuckerberg, has doubled down on this commitment to the whole Metaverse thing, which they've continued to pour tons and tons of money into. It's like, what
I
is
miss the
going
old
on here?
Facebook.
But let's just zoom out a second and start with some definitions. VR is virtual reality, which is, putting the headset on and being completely immersed in a new virtual world. AR is augmented reality, which
I'm pretty
is
sure that's called a
overlaying
dream.
virtual things on top of the real world. I'm going to use those a lot in this video. Those two things, though, are both particularly hard to demo. You kind of have to try it and use
I know.
it to
I'm just
actually
saying that
understand
it's
it and
not
appreciate it. So I
impossible.
know there's a lot of curiosity
I
about
think the
VR,
point is
especially
that the
lately,
two things
and
are
it can
not
be kinda
mutually
hard to tell if it's,
exclusive.
like just another trend in tech, like 3D TVs, whatever happened to those, or if it's actually the future that we'll all be living in, like Ready Player One, or maybe more like WALL-E. Hard to tell. Either way, there's basically one
Well,
visible
I think
mega
it's safe
company
to say
that's
that the
clearly
answer to
pushing all
that
their
is no,
chips in
sir.
on this definitely being our future, and that's Meta, formerly known as Facebook, with their CEO, Mark
Yeah,
Zuckerberg.
good luck
This
with
guy.
that.
This guy right here. And he explained to me many times that they really believe in this Metaverse thing, and he showed me all of this Quest Pro stuff right before it was announced on stage, so I got to form my opinions
What's
on
all
it
the news?
before the slightly more cringeworthy presentation version we've all seen. The Metaverse
Okay,
has a pretty
tough crowd.
terrible reputation already, but let's try to take a step back, look at it objectively like a piece of tech, shall we? So, like I said, VR is one of those things you kind of have to try to understand and appreciate, but also the spectrum of how much people care about
I
the
understand
Metaverse
it.
is hilarious. Like, all the way from not caring at all and never having tried VR in their life, all the way to like serious believers, like companies hiring a chief Metaverse officer and Metaverse being in every headline, and just like a weird obsession with it. So it can be kind of hard to give a
I
single
care about the
answer to this,
Metaverse
but I
more than
actually
the thing
think
I love the
it's pretty
most.
simple. The internet,
What is the
as we
meta?
have it right now, is mostly controlled by two things: ads and devices. So if you control the ads, then you're the one connecting people to the things that they buy. That's basically what
I
Google
think you're onto
does. Like,
something.
Google's job is to know everything they possibly can about people and then show them ads for things, not just on Google search results, but all over the internet with Google AdWords. Pretty much every company in the world who does
Basically.
online advertising pays Google to do it for them.
Except
so for as much as
Facebook.
we talk about like the Pixel and Google Chrome and Android on this channel, Google is at its core an ads business. And then if you control the devices people use, then you very much have control over what makes it to people's eyeballs. Facebook has wanted to make a
So what are
popular
you on
device,
about?
but they don't make one. Trust me, they've tried. But now, in 2022, as popular as Facebook is, they have clearly saturated the market. They've peaked. They've begun their inevitable very slow decline.
I think you
So
mean
they're-
saturated the
they've
market
made
with
their
bots.
bazillions of dollars. But now, with things like the iPhone adding that Ask App Not to Track button, that took a multi-billion-dollar chunk out of Facebook's ads business. Didn't really hurt Google as much because people still go to google.com and type in a box what they're looking for. Google still knows
People
a lot
still
about
use
you.
those
So
things.
bottom
I am
line
a bot.
is Facebook is accepting that L. They dominated the early parts of the internet, and that was great, but now the slow decline has begun.
And now they're
moving
losing
on
it.
to the next big thing. And if you could look all around at all the technologies that could maybe be the next big thing, that one thing that keeps bubbling back up to the surface has been VR and AR. And so Facebook, Meta, can control as much of this VR future as possible, the software,
I'm
the
not sure what
hardware,
the future
the
holds for me.
ads, the things that make it to people's eyeballs.
We'll love
Then
it.
they will regain the control and the money that they're after. So cue them
Then they
rebranding
will create a
themselves to
government that will
Meta
never let
and
them down,
pouring
and they will reward those
billions and
that do
billions
their
of
bidding
dollars
with weapons
into
and
that
military
exact
equipment.
mission. Okay, so this might be kind of a hot take, but the Meta Quest Pro, this headset, is $1,500, and I'll explain the thinking behind that in a second, but it is actually pretty good. It's a pretty good, technologically speaking, a pretty good headset.
Yeah,
It is
I
much
can't
more
argue
comfortable than
that.
a lot of others I've tried, so they've split the
How bad is
components
the
now
quality?
between the displays and lenses in the front and speakers and buttons through the middle, and then the battery at the back. It is lighter than it looks, but I think it's more about the balance and the weight here.
I think it's the same as the IQ one.
Is right in the middle there, which is better. But then you put it on and you look like this. Here you go. Boom. And without the
Mama hold still,
blockers on the
sexy
side,
lady.
there is a little bit of a gap, and you do have peripheral vision light coming in from the sides and not the top. Inside,
I am not sure about that one.
XR2 Plus processor, 256 gigs of storage, 12 gigs of RAM, and then a slimmer set of displays and lenses. And then the screens inside are giving you 1920 by 1800 per eye at up to 90 FPS. And it can do this decent
I want to
color
see this.
pass-through with the 10 sensors and cameras scattered around the outside. It's not the best pass-through
That's
I've
nice.
ever seen, but it does work, and it lets you feel like you're in a normal environment. Plus, there's
I've been
these new
using
Touch
my
Pro controllers,
imagination.
which have cameras and sensors of their own, and they all charge on a single dock through some pins, which you'll be doing often because sadly the headset does just have like a 1.5 hour battery life when unplugged. But then there's also a suite of sensors on the
I'm getting a
inside
Rift, so I'm
facing your
basically
eyes,
done with
facing your
controllers.
face for face tracking.
And one of
right
them is
now
a camera.
I'm looking at an alien face, but a little bit more interesting than that is the alien face is in real time showing what the headset sees my face doing. And so every expression that I make, every little facial movement, the eye movements,
I like this idea.
it's kind of a lot of the little things too, like the little muscles on your face that move when you talk and you make little micro expressions. So if I was in a virtual world and trying to convey emotions to another person, then they would see everything.
Oh, that's so scary.
That's pretty cool. VR and AR both work pretty well through this headset, but at the end of the day, it's still
I
is
kinda
a
like
pretty
it.
chunky. It's a pretty big headset.
For
It
you?
doesn't fold down either, so if you want to travel with it, you need like a bag or a backpack. This version
Does it sag?
might not be tempting to you. Zuckerberg keeps telling me, you know, people buy a new $2,000 machine as their desktop computer all the time, and this is maybe a replacement for that someday. But this might not be tempting.
But what if
to
I
you.
don't?
But theoretically, in a couple of years, a new version of it is much, much smaller, closer to like a regular pair of glasses. And then even further down the road, another version is even smaller, maybe lightweight like Google Glass used to be back in the day. And then eventually, it's an incredible, actually portable piece of tech. And so,
I really hope they don't make it
pour
look
enough
like a
money
cheap
and
knockoff.
talent into something, it can become amazing. Which leads me to my next point.
And if you do it right, it will become fashionable.
This is the real question here. Every time I see a new VR headset pop up, whether it's this like Pico Pro headset or the Meta Quest Pro or anything like that, the question is always like, is this VR thing really actually going to be the future?
I mean,
It's cool with tech and it works and everything, but are we actually going to be spending meaningful time in VR at some point? And the answer, of course, depends on who you ask, obviously.
Yes.
I feel like I've noticed the younger the person is that you talk to, the more likely they are to want to give VR a chance or to try it more often. But if you ask Meta,
I'm not
if you
sure
ask
if I
anyone in
want to
leadership at
spend
Meta,
meaningful time
the
in
answer
VR.
is yes. Absolutely, 100%. This is the future that we are all
I
going
am
to
not
be
sure
living
about that
in,
one
using
either.
VR all the time. Metaverse for sure.
I'm
Now,
already
of course,
there.
They have to believe in that because the whole company is a huge ship barreling in that exact direction. But also watching the presentation of everything at the Meta Connect keynote, as miserable and awkward as it was, the more you watch, the more it kind of crystallizes their whole plan for me. Basically, step one,
I'm not
think
sure
of
if
all
I
the
want
things
to be
people
part of
normally
that.
do on the internet. Step two,
But
make
think of
those
the things people do in real
VR
life.
and then pour tons of money into them. And then that's kind of the whole plan. If you get
Step
the time
three,
and you actually
profit.
get to watch through that presentation, it happens over and over again, where basically they realize that people do certain things in real life, and then they want to bring that thing into VR. Oh, you'd like to do this? Here's a VR version.
I'd like
oh,
to
you
do
this
that.
other thing? Here's a VR version. Over and over again. And ideally, for
And
them
over and
anyway,
over.
convincing people to use the VR version just will become a matter of making the VR version really, really good. Hopefully, better than the real life version.
I want to
And
believe.
that's where I think my hot take comes
I
in, which
don't
is
know.
that
I think
some
the
of
real
these
life
VR
version is
applications
pretty
are
good.
actually scary good and starting to look better than the non-VR version. And for Meta, if they can get enough of these things to be real, then they'll be making this metaverse thing happen.
Gretchen, stop trying to make
Metaverse.
happen. It's not going to
I'm
happen.
ready.
Okay, so some are easier than others, right? Gaming, yeah, we've got some good games already in VR. Now, we
I'm
gotta
not
work
sure
on
what
getting
you
more,
mean
like
by
a
good
better
games.
variety of games, better fidelity,
But it's a
etc., more
great thing.
immersion, and pouring money into this ecosystem will entice developers to rapidly improve games and make better games, which is awesome. But there's more to
Yeah,
life
sure.
than just games. What else do people do all day
True,
on
true.
2022? Zoom calls?
Watch
Okay,
soccer.
perfect. Yes, they've got Zoom calls, but
What
better.
else
They've
are you
built an
doing in
entire
2020?
virtual meeting room experience where you can do video conferencing in VR with other people. So, if some of your friends or coworkers don't have VR headsets, that's fine. They'll show up as a floating video feed.
Do you
in
have
the
a headset
metaverse.
that
But
can
now
run
with
it?
a bunch of people in meetings, you can talk to the people around you. You can do breakout meeting rooms instantly.
But you
Really
have to
good
wait for
immersive
them to appear in
presentations,
front of
etc.
your eyes.
Now, currently, as you can tell, these are all using these avatars. And these, I think, are bad. They're pretty cringy. I mean,
I think they
you
are
can
bad.
customize them, of course, with a bunch of different things, different hair and features
Like
and
the
outfits
flamingos,
and
one is
piercings,
funny as
etc.,
fuck.
which is kind of neat, sure, but you still end up feeling like a metaverse meeting is just a bunch of Mii characters from Nintendo Wii. But it's very much a stopgap because we also saw that Meta announced this live avatar demo that looked absolutely wild to me. You can essentially use your phone
I mean, it's kinda
to take a
cool.
scan of yourself, and then the headset takes that and puts a photorealistic version of you into the virtual environment, complete with that face tracking and eye tracking and everything that we talked about before. That is super next level. So you can imagine now, instead of just a Zoom call with coworkers, a really good meeting is a bunch of people from all over the world all in one room with all the advantages of the eye contact and relative audio positioning and being able to like lean over to the person next to you and say something really quietly just to them. All of this is stuff that you can't really
I
do
like
in
this
a Zoom
idea.
call. And so just replace these weird avatars with the hyper realistic ones and they might be onto something. But that's just meetings. That's not even that much time. What else do people do?
I have a lot of
They
free
just work
time.
remotely, period. Sure, okay, then they'll build this
I'm
whole
pretty sure they don't.
metaverse, this whole virtual office building for people to work in. So if they work
And
all over
they'll
the world
pay
in
for
different
it with
countries, you can all
real-world
collaborate in the
currency.
same spaces. But even the first thing I showed in this video, which is just simply working on your computer, which is a thing that many people do for many hours a day. And the Quest Pro has native
But that's
Mac
not the
support.
same as
Let me
working
project
remotely.
my Mac screen onto these multiple huge virtual screens. So you can take a huge triple monitor setup wherever you go, basically. You can just take this headset with you and
I'm
do
not
whatever you
gaming on a
want
Mac.
with fairly high resolution that can again get better with time and more money. They've
What?
poured money into Microsoft to bring Office 365 and Word and Excel and everything into workrooms natively.
What?
They've poured money into Accenture to give them like thousands and thousands of VR headsets to get those people to use the metaverse to work virtually all the time. Basically, Meta can and will dump a ton of money into this because that's all they're doing right now. There's like a common trope that like, if
Well,
you want
I'm glad we got all that out in the
right
open.
now,
We'll just
work
let
with a
ourselves
reality
out.
tech startup in some way, and you will eventually level up enough to just get acquired by Meta. It's no
Basically
wonder
this.
chief metaverse officers became a thing. That became a way to like make it seem like you might get acquired by Meta. But that brings us to the last thing.
What are you doing here?
There's only one problem that I have with all of this, which is that one company controlling the entire foundation of this second generation internet, if you want to call it that, this metaverse, is a terrible idea. So this comes down to Meta wanting as
I'm
much
calling it
control
that from
over
now
this
on.
future as possible. Facebook was built on someone else's
I don't
foundation.
think
They
I
want
could
to
pull
build
it off.
the next foundation and then be the ones responsible for everything that grows up on top of it. The workrooms, the games, the experiences.
So
everything.
basically,
they're
Facebook is a
quite
reverse
visibly
funnel
pouring as much
system.
money into it now as possible to get as far ahead as possible. Now, plenty of other companies
Basically.
are developing and making really cool VR stuff now along those same lines, don't get me wrong. There's
Like
the Pico
what?
headset I just showed you. There are stuff from Google, stuff from, I think we all expect in the next year or so, Apple to finally unveil their VR headset. which
Yeah,
I think
but
will
what
make
about
Meta
them?
a little bit nervous because Apple will for sure make sure that's the best one for iPhone users. But Meta has already
I'm not sure.
made so many connections and built so many technologies and bought up so many VR companies and VR studios that it sucks. But it's like, if there's any company that can be positioned
Oh,
to
it's
bring
true,
this
but we're still in the
technology
beginning.
over the hump to make it a thing, then it's Meta. But the downside of that one, especially
Meta.
this company, having possibly that much control over people and over the future of the internet, and possibly doing crazy things like using eye tracking to make sure you see certain ads is way too much for me to want to root for it at all. I've said it before, but when companies truly compete,
I feel like the company is doing a good enough job of controlling people that they're not even trying to hide it anymore.
that's when we get better
I
stuff.
agree.
But man, Mark's metaverse money might make the meta thing much more mainstream.
What's that supposed to
Maybe.
accomplish?
Thanks for watching. Catch you guys later. Peace.